Hey, welcome back to the stash. As you all know by now, Mary Jane Watson is currently public enemy number 1 within the Spidey office. Nick Lowe and his partner in bad writing, Zeb Wells, were at the very forefront of it all, orchestrating possibly one of the worst character assassinations I've personally ever seen. With Peter and MJ going from on the brink of marriage once more to the very opposite. Thanks to these barnacle heads, Mary Jane left Peter for no good reason to a man named Paul. And ever since, let me tell you, the state of Mary Jane's character has looked so incredibly bleak. Hell, she's even been relegated from the Spidey books down to the Venom comics. Oddly enough, just like way back when the people in charge tried to ruin her character during the Brand New Day era. Just like we're seeing again now during that horrific time, MJ went from being a secondary character in Amazing Spider-Man to almost a complete afterthought within Iron Man comics. But anyway, as I was reading All New Venom issue 1, I thought to myself, that was actually pretty decent. Until it hit me, there were still more pages. I turned to the next page wondering what else could possibly be in store for me to read. And then it hit me. He had returned. Skip West! Paul Rabin's ugly face once again infecting my eyes. I was halfway there to being Matt Murdock. I then saw MJ in her jackpot outfit, the perfect symbol of everything wrong with her modern characterization. But get this, here it's revealed that the pair are still in fact grieving for their fake kids disappearing for whatever reason, Imagine caring more for magical children that weren't yours and their sole purpose was to break you and your boyfriend up. Imagine caring about them more than your actual daughter that sadly passed away due to your miscarriage. Nick Lowe, you're a fucking genius. Anyway, if seeing Paul, the man everyone in prison would love's face, wasn't a big enough twist for the issue, we're then treated to seeing Dylan Brock, the son of Eddie Brock, with the comic infected by Nick Lowe, setting MJ and Paul up as a potential parental figures for Dylan. Then boom, everything went dark. My eyes simply couldn't take it anymore. I couldn't see. I fully became Matt Murdock, except a Spidey office with Nick Lowe as the editor makes me the man with fear. Anyway, this intro took way too fucking long. So hear me out. We actually have a chance, a small but clear chance, to finally get out of this hellhole. As I was scrolling through X the other day, I stumbled upon a small preview for issue 2 of All New Venom, with the image depicting the feud between Paul and Dylan seemingly reaching an all-time high. We know that Dylan can't stand Paul. Same here, don't blame him one bit. And we also know that after reading issue 1, it's been a difficult couple of months for Marvel fans with a man bun. Now, long-time ASM readers, let me ask you one thing. What's one of MJ's most defining aspects of her childhood? That's right, her abusive father. Now, that's it. That is the key for us to finally escape this nightmare. Now, I heavily doubt this was intentional. It would be nice if it was, because then it would mean that the people in charge are actually set up a brilliant way to end things between MJ and Paul, but they've shown us throughout the last few years that Adam West in Family Guy has more brain cells.
Nobody messes with Adam Wee.
The only person that gives me hope within this series, in doing what is the clear way of ending things between MJ and Paul, is at the very least L. Ewing the writer. Ewing has proven himself many times that he in fact actually knows a lot about Marvel Comics, unlike Zeb Wells, who was too lazy to even read the comic series he's writing. Ewing is like an encyclopedia for Marvel. If there was a writer besides Hickman who I'd have faith in to deliver such a far callback, it would have to be him. Also, it is so worth mentioning the artist of this issue, and one of my personal favorite MJ artists of all time, hates Paul.
So good.
But so the all-new Venom series has set up a golden opportunity for the writers of The Amazing Spider-Man. Have Paul slowly become just like the most traumatic person in Mary Jane's family. Have us watch his descent into becoming the thing MJ swore to avoid. Have Paul become the mistakes Mary Jane's mother and sister made. Letting Paul turn into this abusive or aggressive partner would allow MJ to see what she's done, to see that she's becoming just like the rest of her family, and it can easily continue with within this series, with each issue having Dylan and Paul constantly arguing, with each encounter slowly revealing Paul's true self. By the end of their time on this comic, he'd be on the brink of becoming what MJ always despised. This would allow the perfect entry for Mary Jane's return within the Amazing Spider-Man. This is where the feud could reach its climax, where MJ realized that she's followed in the exact same footsteps of the people she promised herself she would never do so. And so finally, after all this time, breaks up with Paul. But now that we've laid out the clear direction Marvel should go to free Mary Jane, I wanted to take a much deeper dive into why and how this would be, in my opinion, an amazing story for her character. Now it only makes sense to start at where the also-important character trait formed, Mary Jane's upbringing. MJ's history with her father is one of the defining aspects of what makes her who she is today. Her father wasn't a good man, and the Amazing Spider-Man issue 259 is where it's shown for the very first time. Now, ASM 259, for me at least, it's one of my favorite issues ever, especially for one that served almost as filler to get to the Hobgoblin story. There's a lot to unpack when you actually look at the comic as a whole, and it's definitely a video I'd be interested in making, but within the issue, we see Philip, Mary Jane's father, as this abusive and aggressive person. Whether it was emotionally or physically, Philip seemed to always lash out in the worst way possible thanks to his failing writing career, and this experience shaped the person Mary Jane became. As much as MJ tried to escape the toxicity of her childhood, she'd always carry the emotional scars of that experience. In many ways, her journey as a character from being the party girl to the best wife Peter could possibly ask for has all been built on trying to avoid falling into the same patterns of abuse and dysfunction that defined her early life, or to put it simply, to avoid the same mistakes her mother and sister made. Now, we all know and hate the fact that she's in a relationship with Paul, and after all the effort Zedwell's put not into writing a good story, no, but into these attempts at making Paul a likable character for whatever, bullshit reason, he might seem like a kind-hearted person, but thanks to All New Venom, we begin to see some of the layers begin to crack. We start to see the warning signs of his toxicity. Hell, the man aided genocide after all. The reason why this could work as setup is pretty simple. Abusive relationships don't always start with outright violence or manipulation. They can start small. Maybe it's controlling behavior, maybe it's dismissing her emotions or belittling her achievements, or maybe, just maybe, it's the effect of a child, just like a certain Madeline and Gail Watson. The moment Paul starts to yell at Dylan in All New Venom, it just feels like an eerie callback to MJ's childhood, almost as if he's following a path that leads straight to becoming the exact type of person MJ's father was. Is this intentional? Well, like I said before, I doubt it, but nonetheless, it's a golden opportunity that Marvel can't afford to ignore. Surely they're not all brain dead. Surely they're well aware of the constant poor reviews and the way Ultimate Spider-Man always rips to shred ASM in sales. The way that Amazing Spider-Man comics fill up each and every comic store like a weed you just can't seem to get rid of, with piles upon piles of unsold copies laying around everywhere. But by having Paul follow this path, they can bring MJ face to face with her own trauma and force her to confront the painful realization that she's becoming what she feared most. This is the most essential point of her potential story arc, breaking free from the toxic relationship that mirrors her past and finding the strength to not only come to terms with her actions, but to make proper amends too, specifically with Peter Parker and their relationship. Now, Paul's descent into becoming like MJ's father shouldn't be something that happens in a space of an issue or two. It needs to be something that is properly expanded on. To have his flaws suddenly begin to surface would, in my opinion, create the most impactful version of this story. His arguments with Dylan, for an example, are a great enabler for this change, whether it's his need to control situations or simply just his anger. These things start to suffocate his relationship with MJ, and most importantly, they trigger memories in MJ of what she's tried so hard to escape. This is obviously a slow burner story, Ultimate Spider-Man haters' worst nightmares, but Maybe Hickman simply just permanently altered my brain, but I truly believe that it can lead to a powerful payoff, because imagine each issue showing that Paul is slowly unraveling. Maybe at first MJ just brushes it off, making excuses for his behavior, but with each interaction with Dylan, Paul becomes more and more unpredictable. His behavior becomes more erratic, more defensive. He starts to maybe isolate MJ from her friends and maybe even from her life as Jackpot as well. Even though it's subtle at first, issue 1 of All New Venom has already provided us with a possible foundation for the Jackpot aspect. She might think it's out of love, but eventually she'll start to notice the controlling behavior, and just like that, Paul starts to mirror the very thing she promised herself she would never bring back into her life. This entire story can be a brilliant arc for Paul's character too. In fact, it would give him a character. It would give him more purpose than Zeb Wells and Nick Lowe could ever manage. Now, before I end the video, there's just one more aspect of this story I wanted to talk about, and that is Dylan Brock's role within the entire thing. Dylan's part within all this cannot be overstated. He has the potential to serve as an important, perhaps story-defining mirror to MJ's past and present. Hell, as the son of Eddie Brock, it's no secret that Dylan is someone who at the very least understands the complexities of family trauma. And in a way, he could become the emotional anchor for MJ, giving her a way to see Paul's behavior from a different angle, a familiar angle. If built up properly, Dylan's hatred of Paul wouldn't just be teenage angst, it could become a reflection of something MJ has overlooked. So when Dylan pushes back against Paul, he's not just rebelling for the sake of it, he's fighting back against the toxic person in his life, and that's something that MJ should be able to recognize. Now, if Marvel plays this out properly, Dylan could become the catalyst for MJ's eventual decision to leave Paul. It may take a scene where Dylan confronts Paul, and in that moment, MJ sees herself, the daughter of an abusive father, trapped once more in a relationship she just doesn't know how to escape. But with Dylan, or maybe even Peter's help, because I feel like he should also play a vital role within this, she finds the courage to do what she needs to do. Now, Mary Jane's future is uncertain, but for the first time in years, it feels like it's potentially in her own hands again. This story could set the stage for MJ's return to the Amazing Spider-Man, not as this shallow husk of what once was, but as the character that we, the fans, have been reading across 60 years. The potential story arc would see MJ go through something harrowing, but shows that through her own strength, none of this Jackpot mess, but we're talking about 100% Mary Jane Watson, just like how it always was and should be, she can reclaim and rebuild her life. If Marvel takes this path, it can restore Mary Jane from the horrid state it's left her back into a complex, compelling character we all know and love. So please, Marvel, we're all begging you, do us all a favor and bring back the one and only Mary Jane Watson.